Before the debate got underway, the bickering had started, but that was only over our presence.
I don't want to be on any camera.
Proceedings started slowly, respectfully, each man firing their opening shots.
I don't need to be here today, and in fact I don't want to be here today. The last thing I thought I'd be doing a year after this trial, after the not guilty verdicts, was talking about the Bain case.
When you look at all the evidence, incomplete as it might be, it only points in one direction. Robin Bain didn't murder the Bain family.
But then, oh, how the sparks flew. Remnants of blood on Robin Bain?
There is no physical evidence.
Sorry,
he's got blood on his shoe.
Smeared blood all over his hands.
Okay, he doesn't have blood smeared all over his hands. That's a complete lie, Joe Karam. There is not blood smeared all over his hands. If there was any blood, it was his own. And it was there because he had been shot by David. Come on, you know that. It wasn't Stephen's blood. There was no other blood on Robin Bain except his own. There was certainly Stephen Bain's blood on David.
How did Robin get smears of blood all over his hands?
You've shown me photos this morning, I must admit I hadn't seen quite that amount of detail, of the actual murder scene of Robin, you call it the suicide scene, where there is blood splattered everywhere.
No, there's not.
Yes, there is. It's up the curtains,
exactly,
it's on the walls.
But Michael, you see, this is precisely the loose attitude that people like you... No, stop.
You
Stop.
You haven't proven that blood is anybody else's other than Robin's.
Stop. The blood spatter on the curtains, there are no smears in that blood. They're all drops that have not been smeared. Nothing's touched them.
You wouldn't expect them to.
Exactly. So how did the blood get on Robin Bain's hands? Not just
it's
in
really
one little
simple.
spot.
Oh, for Pete's
we are
sake.
talking... No, stop.
He fell down.
And there's no blood for his hand to go into. His hand doesn't go wandering around the place after he's dead.
The lack of injuries to Robin.
That is not a significant
Well, the Dr.
cut.
Dempster said it was.
Oh, come on. I'm looking at it right now,
David
and it's
had no
about the
cuts
size of a large mosquito bite that's got a bit of
3
infected.
millimetres.
That's not 3 millimetres.
Well, Dr. Dempster described it as 3 millimetre abrasion surrounded by a 25...
You shouldn't have shown me that photo, because that's not a 3 millimetre wound.
Well, you see, because your listeners can't hear it, you can be cute like this.
I'm not
I know
being
you
cute.
Have, you do have
The cuts and scratches on David's face and chest.
There's the photo, mate.
But how do they show any conflict? If you banged into a door...
The forensic evidence...
that wall there now, that's exactly what you'd have on it.
You're absolutely right. Except David didn't say that, which is the reason you didn't put him on the stand last time, because he got hung by under cross-examination. He couldn't provide an explanation as to the bruises on his face, bruises that were recent, and that the evidence of the Crown is that he got from killing Stephen. Now, Joe, you can't ignore that. Now, you've made a big play of the fact that there was a recent bruise on the left of Robin Bain's hand.
No, on his right hand.
On his right hand.
On his knuckles.
Whoop-de-doo.
Robin's alleged suicide note typed on the family computer.
The message, Michael, is written like this. It goes, sorry, comma, indent drop down below the comma, and then you are the only one who deserved to stay, as another line down below it, which is a very pedantic, old-fashioned way of writing letters, as you and I would have been taught back in our day. These days, people hardly use commas. The style of message is the sort of style that an old-fashioned school teacher who's been well trained in this sort of thing might write, not somebody growing up in the days of internet where you hardly even use commas, full stops or anything. You just go, sorry, you're the only one who deserved to stay, and write it down if you were going to do it.
This is ludicrous to argue.
But that is not the proposition.
This was clearly David.
But that is not the proposition.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's
you
not.
can't have it both ways, Joe.
No,
he's either
that is
off
not-
his trolley or he's planned this. And your argument is he's off his trolley.
Right.
Inadmissible evidence was also given a run, Karam raising claims Robin was depressed and wife Margaret was concerned about him.
In fact, she said that she was so concerned about him, and this is a quote, Margaret Bain said to Mrs. Dunn, I am scared that he might obtain a gun and shoot the whole family.
But Laws also got a crack, in particular a claim that David had suggested using his paper round as an alibi to commit a crime.
I remember when I was 17, most boys' brains head south. at about that time, and they dream of doing all sorts of things to girls. And they wander around talking to their mates.
Sort of consenting girls, though.
Claims Robin Bain had been molesting his daughters. Some of that was admitted as evidence, some was not, but it all got an airing today.
I don't want to get into an argument about whether she did, or whether he did, or whether he didn't. What I'm saying, Michael, is the fact of the matter is there are a vast amount of people saying it, and the way it's been scooted around so far is that Laniet was a fantasizer. Well, now we have Ara saying exactly the same thing.
A fantasist.
And I think we should move on.
I agree, but I will say this to you again, Joe, because all of this is slightly irrelevant. It just goes to potential motives and how dysfunctional the family was.
No.
And how dysfunctional the whole family was dysfunctional, including David.
They were not
Oh, don't be ridiculous. A prostitute at 18 or 17 is
how old
not...
do you think most girls go into prostitution at? There's 13-year-olds
Yes,
out on the street.
and I'm sorry, but I don't know what background you have, but that's not functional.
Of course it's not. And it
Okay.
usually happens because they're being abused by a close family member.
Or
they're on drugs.
Or they're potty.
There was nothing potty about... Well,
Laniet was potty.
who said
She made up a whole series of claims
No,
that turned out to be completely false. She wasn't raped. She didn't have a black baby.
How do you know?
Oh, Joe. Serious. You're now seriously expecting us to believe that
you
she
are now
had...
using rhetoric to try to...
Do you really... There was no evidence that she'd had children?
That's beside the point.
That she was raped in Papua New Guinea?
Talk to your social...
But she was saying that to other people.
Talk to people who work in social welfare. And one of the things that happens to girls who get abused by family members is they feel shame and disgrace. And they often fantasise about things like that in order to not have to tell the truth of what really has happened to them. This is a very common thing.
Even the ad breaks provided no respite, neither did questions from callers.
The way he did it, it wasn't that he loved David or wanted David to be spared. It was like he wanted to blame him, and that's
He wanted to...
what I don't understand.
You're absolutely right.
You're making all of these quantum leaps that Michael keeps making when he talks about this.
It's called logic, Joe.
No, it's not called logic.
Among the callers, press reporter Martin van Benen, who'd sat through each of the trial's 58 days. He'd written an article that slammed the jury's decision, and now Karam was in his sights.
He does tend to misrepresent things, as Michael has already pointed out. First of all, there was no blood found under Robin Bain's fingernails. There was the evidence is that there was some red substance seen under his fingernails, but it was never tested by the police. So for Joe to say that there was blood under the fingernails. Hang on a minute, let me finish.
Well, I'm reading from Peter Henchel's job sheet, which I just said to
it was
Michael.
never tested, Joe. You know that.
But then debate moderator Brent Impey chopped him off in full flight.
He's made his point of a difference in the conversation.
Yeah,
this is a debate as to whether Robin...
Finally, each man had a chance to sum up their position.
At the time David Bain was arrested, not one single piece of forensic evidence was to hand. They hadn't properly resolved the issue of all of the other fingerprints that were on the gun. As we know, police don't like admitting that they're wrong.
There is no evidence that points to this man doing that. The evidence all points to one way, and that is that David Bain is a guilty man and also a very lucky one.
David or Robin? A friendly handshake ended the debate, but it seems nothing will stop the argument.